each.
Mic check 1 2 with a do and a big hook to you. Welcome back to the Mic Check Podcast. This is T Word, the People's Champ. Thank you for tapping in. Today we're talking about the Texas Longhorns and their upset victory over the Alabama Crimson Tide. But before we get into the video, don't forget to like, comment, hit that subscribe button. We appreciate that. All right, y'all, let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so Texas Longhorns traveled down to Tuscaloosa to take on the Alabama Crimson Tide in a home and away type of series that they started on last season, where Alabama stole a win in Austin. This time, Texas was coming into town to try and return the favor, and that they did. On the day when Quinton Lilley was able to play the entire game versus being injured early on, the Texas Longhorns showed that they were there for business, and they really gave Alabama all that they can stand. And there's always these games. If you watch enough Alabama, you'll have these games where you see it feels like at any minute they're going to hit a switch and take over. But in this one, I felt like Texas came in and you could see it immediately with quarterback play that Texas had the advantage and Alabama was going to be overmatched. And when you have a quarterback like Alabama does that isn't a true threat in the passing game from a consistency standpoint, it makes it a lot easier for the opposing defense to set up a game plan to eliminate your best asset and then just go after your QB. And that's exactly what happened. Now, I'm saying all of that, but at the same time, this kid has an arm where he could get it down the field, and he beat Texas a couple times with some big plays. But once they adjusted the coverage late in the game, specifically in the fourth quarter, got to give credit to the defense coordinator, specifically late in the game, Texas adjusted the way that their safeties played, and they started to eliminate those over the top plays. Every time you saw him throw towards a receiver that was past, like, let's say 20 yards, there were two players in the area. There's a safety over the top with a cornerback underneath. So they started to make life very difficult for him. So those deep passes that they were trying to set up completely taken away from the offense. And all of a sudden, Texas is forcing turnovers on downs and forcing turnovers in general. And this really led to Texas being able to eventually pull away and win this game 34-24. Now, what was big to me, though, is that Quinton was somebody who was absent from last year's game, was able to show what he could do despite an okay running game from Texas, because through three quarters, the run game, I think, had less than like 60 yards. And then the fourth quarter, they kind of put their stamp on things and really start to put some dominance out there, show that Texas is going to belong in the SEC. Now, I'm a Longhorns fan, so I'm a little bit biased in my assessment here, but I felt like Texas had the overall better team. Defensively, they were just as fast, just as strong, just as big. Offensively, the offensive line showed that what Texas had been known for many years, putting great offensive linemen in the NFL. This year, this team brought back 5 guys that all started all the games last year. They brought back that same unit this year. When you have that type of continuity and consistency, that's going to make your team better. And I thought that it went a long way in this particular game. And the trenches is where Texas showed they deserve to be here and get a victory on the road. And I think that this team probably would have won last year had Ewers not gotten hurt. So you've got guys like Xavier Worthy at receiver, A.D. Mitchell, who came in from Georgia, just big plays, Whittington, and then the run game, again, just consistent enough. They just kept chipping away at that rock till eventually it cracked and they started making stuff happen. And then I love the way Ewers was very responsible with the ball. He didn't make a lot of bad decisions. He's still a QB that sometimes you hold your breath when he cocks back to throw, but I thought that he played a very consistently high-level game, and with that, I can't complain. Now back to this Alabama thing with the quarterback, I do want to address this. I think that this is going to really hurt them throughout the season. They have a quarterback that doesn't pose much threat in the passing game, and that's going to show up a lot in the SEC. If you can't throw the ball and you can only be a running team, defenses like Georgia, LSU, teams of that ilk are going to come after you. Florida, they're going to just load up the box and just stop your run and force that dude to throw it over the top. And some of those teams have even better defensive backs than Texas does. So when you start to look at guys that could just size up your receivers one-on-one and just go down the field with them full speed, it's going to be a problem for Alabama this year. I'm going to go on record right now and say I could see that team losing 3 games. And I'm not talking about like this game, another regular season game, and then the conference championship. I'm talking about they might not even sniff the conference championship because they could potentially lose 3 games unless they make a change at quarterback. That, in my opinion, completely goes out the window because now you're looking at a different team. There's a couple of young quarterbacks on that roster that might make something happen. But on this particular game, on this particular night, it was all about Texas, and I love what I saw from them. Um, I love that Sark put trust in his team. I love that he believed in his quarterback. He believed in his run game. He believed in his defense, and he took chances when it was necessary. And he makes it 28-3. Nick Saban against former assistants. So this is the third time somebody has beaten Nick Saban that used to work for him in 30 plus tries. And Sark is one of them. I think this is his second time beating him because I think he beat him with like Washington or something like that. But um, all of that to say, I like where this is going. I have my apprehensions about Steve Sarkisian coming in and taking over this team, but now that he's been there and he's really put his stamp on what they're going to be, a gritty team with some finesse to him. He's recruiting really well, which I'm super happy with. Texas is on their way back up, ranked highly again. And I think they deserve to be there right now. I want to see some consistency, but I love this victory. I love the fact that they showed grit on the road and were able to take over victory from what I think is still a good team. I just don't think this team isn't as good as Alabama last year because they don't have that great quarterback. But at the same time, you on the schedule, we'll put a foot in that ass too. So let me know what you think about this particular game. One thing I do want to close on, there's a couple videos circulating around. We're not going to cover it much, but there's some Alabama fans that said some really nasty things to some players. And, you go to the circus, you're going to end up with clowns. And they went down there into a circus and the clowns showed up and did what they do. Hopefully they don't have to deal with that anymore. Hopefully, there'll be some policing of this kind of stuff. I don't like when fans insert themselves and go at players in this way. They said some really nasty, derogatory things that were borderline just racist, homophobic, and everything else. And there's just no place for that in sports, in my opinion. I think there's a way to talk shit without having to get real nasty with it. But them people will get what they got coming. Like I said, you go to the circus, you're gonna see some clowns, and that's just what happened. But what are your thoughts on this particular game? Did you hear about the little extracurricular stuff? This has been T for the Mic Check Podcast. Until the next time, I am out. Peace.